All right, so it's Wednesday evening again. This is another community chat. I'm joined this evening by Brian Stroffolino of Heartland Farms and Solstice Seeds. How are you doing this evening, Brian?
I'm doing well.
Awesome. Thank you for joining me. All right. Yeah, I lost audio there for just a second, but
Oh,
good. You can hear me. That's great.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Perfect. Well, why don't we start off just by having you introduce yourself and talk about how you got into permaculture or farming and seed saving.
Sure. Yeah, that could be a long story, but I'll try to keep it short and sweet. Um, so yeah, I am a primarily now a seed saver. We've got the seed catalog, Solstice Seeds, but we have a permaculture farm here in Hartland, very diversified. Vegetables, fruit, nuts, berries, livestock, seed production, herbs, grains. Um, yeah, a whole swath of stuff going on here. The background, I got into the community garden network. Was really involved in that in the Burlington area. Worked with Jim Flint, who actually started the Burlington Community Garden Network, and later became the Community Garden Network of Vermont. So worked with him, just really fell in love with gardening, really liked the communal aspect of gardening and sharing food, and decided to pursue an internship on a farm. So quit my job and moved down to Middlebury, Vermont, and pursued an internship with some young farmers at Gildrian Farm. They've since moved to Leicester, Vermont. But I farmed there for a season, and then girlfriend at the time, now wife, was doing long-term sub positions and ended up getting a job at Hartford High School, where actually I went to high school. So I grew up in this area, and that brought us back to the Upper Valley, or region, in Wolfboro, New Hampshire. But then just kind of dove in and started a small CSA, participated in our local farmers market here in Hartland, eventually became the market manager. And I've been managing the market here in Hartland. I think this is my 9th season, maybe 10. That sounds scary. I think it's 9th year.
That's the one that's right across from like Mike's Deli.
Yes. Yep. So yeah, and this particular piece of land, just it kind of fell into our laps. We were leasing and renting a little studio, and had the opportunity to cultivate about 8/10 of an acre. And the first year that we were in the Upper Valley, and I just, made a point to reach out to all farmers and gardeners in this area, and was just connecting with people. And then actually the property owner said, "Oh, you have to meet Sylvia DeBotts." And so I called Sylvia, and we chatted for probably 3 hours that first day in her gardens, which are, it's just a paradise. Her property is so beautiful. And it just evolved, and we ended up leasing the land here for 3 years, I believe. And then we've since purchased it. And so now, yeah, we're owners and trying to make a go here on the property. So things have shifted. Like I said, we first started out primarily focusing on vegetables, but over the years, kind of collaborating with Sylvia, because she started the seed catalog that I now operate.
Yeah.
We had to kind of have our conversations every year with regards to what I was growing, and more so what Sylvia was hoping to grow for seed, with regards to isolation distance and kind of maintaining the purity of the varieties that she was growing and preserving. So of course that kind of sparked my interest in seed saving, and I just, dove in and just really became immersed in it and learned the importance of it. And Sylvia has been a great mentor, and basically we were leading up to this transition, but it was in 2000, what year is it? 2020?
Something like that. Who even knows anymore?
Yeah, right. So I think it was the fall of 2017. Sylvia said she wasn't going to offer the catalog anymore, and I wasn't going to let it fade. So I said I was going to take it on, and so we've been offering the catalog for 3 years now, and since kind of ramped things up, and with that, our primary focus on the farm now is seed production, seed preservation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We were talking a little bit earlier about my background in kind of food and ethnobotany and anthropology, and I've had some really great opportunities to speak with I'll say Glenn, blanking on the name at the moment, but down at Anson Mills in the Carolinas, who does a lot with kind of landrace grain varieties.
Okay.
I've always found those kind of very flexible, kind of old world, just kind of the what we consider like a lot of heritage breeds,
Right.
absolutely fascinating.
Oh yeah, just the historical context is fascinating. But a lot of those varieties do extremely well, and they have much more nutritional value than some of these more conventional varieties that have been pretty much bred just for production, and not so much flavor, taste, quality, nutritional value. So that's something that we incorporate in the seed catalog are some old heritage grains, some of which were developed here in Vermont. We've got a winter wheat called Vermont Reed 1898. That's a really good producer. And then we have dabbled in barley and oats and rye, rice. You can actually grow rice in a garden. There are upland varieties of rice, some of which originated in Italy, northern Italy, Russia. There's some Japanese varieties that actually do quite well here in Vermont, and you don't need a paddy. So it's just like growing any other vegetable in your garden. And that's something that Sylvia would say that again. Yeah.
Do they require more water than other crops, or is it?
Maybe a little bit more, but not. It's not like you would think, like rice paddy saturation. It doesn't need that flood of water to really thrive. So I would say no more than most vegetables in your garden in terms of irrigation. So really cool. We can do a lot here in Vermont.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for people that watch this afterwards, what is permaculture? Like, how is? I know it's a big question, but like just the basic concept.
Right. Depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
For me, permaculture is a set of design principles, and it's really observing nature and trying to mimic nature as much as possible. So it's it's perennial based. So fruit trees, nut trees, perennial herbs. But also with regards to, the annual vegetable garden, it's, for me personally, it's no tillage or very minimal tillage. It's keeping the soil healthy. It's encouraging microbial activity and fungal activity, building mycelium networks, which the only way that you can build those and maintain those is to not disturb the soil as much as possible. It's keeping the soil covered as much as possible. I generate all our own mulch hay here on the farm. And a big advantage of that is I can mow it before the seeds are mature, so I'm not spreading perennial grasses on the vegetable field.
Sure.
But keeping the soil covered, either with mulch or with cover crops or plants as much as possible, to maintain that symbiotic relationship with plant matter, roots, and fungi, microorganisms, various biology. So that's how I kind of look at permaculture, is just really trying to focus on soil health, but also creating habitat for native species. Since we've been planting trees and shrubs and kind of changing the landscape here, we've noticed there's more wild birds, finding food and habitat in amongst our trees and shrubs. And of course they add to the fertility. Yeah. They eat pests, they just contribute to the balance. So I think also with permaculture, it's maintaining a balance, and maintaining a diverse ecosystem and not putting all your eggs into one basket, and also having multiple functions. That's one thing that permaculture really likes to touch on, is having different functions for things. So your chickens aren't just for eggs, but they are spreading manure. They're kind of tilling or disturbing the soil a little bit, but they're eating pests. It's the multifunction, which is really neat. Some of our nut trees are also they're shrubs. They really sucker, so that provides a windbreak. It provides food for us, but it provides food for other critters too. So just trying to have as many functions and trying to increase habitat, increase diversity, and contribute to a thriving kind of microclimate and ecosystem here on the farm.
Yeah, that's great. I've always really enjoyed how it's a very intentional way of kind of stewarding the land, and I imagine that translates pretty well in practice to the kind of the art and science of saving seeds as well.
Absolutely. Seeds are the foundation of life.
Yeah.
We do not eat. No being, no creature can eat without seeds. So from a self-reliant standpoint, like, you need, that is foundational, seeds. So that's something that drives me and encourages me, is just knowing that I'm providing all the seed for the farm, and then also being able to share that with other people, but giving them the opportunity to save their own seed, because everything that we offer in the catalog is open pollinated. So that's key. If you want to save seeds, you need to start with open pollinated varieties. So if it's F1 or F2, which indicates a hybrid on a seed package,
okay,
that has been specifically bred, and it will not produce seed, or if it does, it won't come true to type. As opposed to if you start with open pollinated seeds, that will produce offspring that will become true to type. So that's how you preserve varieties, is starting with those open pollinated varieties. And then, there's a lot of complexity depending on the crop, with regards to isolation distance and population size and how it's pollinated. Is it self-pollinating, cross-pollinating? So yeah, it's so specific, crop specific, but once you learn about a specific crop, you really build this intimate relationship with that crop. Its growth habits, how much seed it roughly will produce, and yeah, it's just like I've got so many beings that I'm connected with on the farm here, both
Yeah,
seed producing, food producing, but also just contributing to other creatures and to the habitat in general.
that's
So
really awesome.
yeah, you say steward. I mean, permaculture. Yeah, you are a steward of the land, for sure, which is an incredible responsibility. But it's a great feeling too.
Yeah, rewarding, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so I kind of use the term loosely, but what technology is necessary to save seeds? Is it do you require a way to as far as like storage over over seasons, or do they dry out essentially in the field? Like how do you know I conceive of the word technology as just like what tools you need to kind of
sure.
do the process for yourself.
Yeah. Again, it, it's really crop specific,
Hmm.
because some seeds are dry and some seeds are wet. So depending on that crop, there are different processes for saving seed. But I use a lot of different screens. So I have a beautiful selection of 8 different screens that are in uh, really nice cedar boxes. Um, and so those, depending on what I'm trying to save seed of, I'll run the seed through different screens. Um, Everything is harvested from the field. I don't let things kind of ferment or overwinter, so to speak, in the field. So everything is harvested. Um, but I guess, for an example, very low tech in terms of technology, but like tomatoes. So tomatoes are super easy. They're self-pollinating, so technically they won't cross with another plant. So you can grow multiple varieties in a given year and save seed of them. Um, but you need to do a fermentation process. So I'm sure if you've cut open a tomato and you see all the seeds in the flesh, and it's got that like gelatinous kind of membrane around it.
Yep.
Well, you need to ferment the seeds to break that down. And the fermentation process, these that could be seed borne. So essentially, you just scoop out all your tomato seeds into a little, like yogurt container.
Hmm.
Maybe not a quart, little guys, but you basically just scoop out all the seeds and then you let it ferment. So for like a couple days, it depends on the temperature. But once you get this nice mold fuzz across the top, your seeds have been fermented. And you simply just scoop off that fuzz, run the seeds and liquid through a sieve, a fine sieve with running water, and kind of just get the rest of the material off of there. And then you let your seeds dry. And in terms of storage, cool, dry is the best storage environment. Preferably in bags, as much as I don't like to use plastic, but bags are really good. Glass jars are great, but when you're talking large quantities, that can take up a lot of space.
Yeah.
And for extremely long-term storage, refrigeration is great, just because it's got that cold, consistent temperature.
Yeah.
But I keep the bulk of my seeds in a root cellar, and I've had tomato seeds that got passed on to me from Sylvia from 1998, and it has better germination than seeds that I bought from a commercial seed company.
Yeah.
So really, how you're growing the plants, how you're harvesting it, how you're processing it, and how you're storing it can really increase the lifespan of the seed. Brassicas, which are your broccoli, kale, cauliflower, cabbage, collards, though mustard greens are brassicas, that the seed life of that can be 10 plus years easily. But as I just shared, 20-year-old tomato seed still is viable and germinating. So it's incredible to have seeds that can last for that long of a period. But of course, it's important to be growing things out on a more regular basis. So I'm not offering seeds in my catalog that are from 1998.
Yeah.
But it's amazing that seeds can live that long. You know, some tree crops, some like pine nuts and I think pine cones can last for up to 40 years. And
Wow.
once they kind of get that optimal environment, you know, some things like pine need like a forest fire or some
Yeah.
kind of dramatic event like that, and then they'll germinate, and they can just sit there for decades. So seeds are incredible. They're incredible. And I'm really fortunate to be immersed in this work.
Yeah, it's really cool. You know, I've purchased kind of heritage seeds for several years as we've kind of worked on cultivating or converting part of our yard into a garden. And I'm excited to move away from kind of like the national, you know, not that they're, you know, a bad company, but like the Baker Seeds of the world, where, you know, the big seed companies uh, to purchase from someone, you know, more local to us and to our region. Um, do you have a favorite seed to work with or harvest or?
That's a tough one. I think I'm maintaining. No, it changes every year because I always can't say no to certain crops, but I think it's like 243 varieties. So who's my favorite? That's tough. That's tough.
Or like a favorite classification to work with, like, you know, flowers or tomatoes or nightshades or brassicas, as you mentioned,
Yeah,
or if not a favorite, perhaps one that just stands out as a unique.
one that stands out. You know, I hate to say it, but nothing's really jumping out at me because
Yeah,
they all contribute to one's seasonal diet, and they all have, you know, a lot of historical context, and it's so hard to just pinpoint one.
yeah,
Because once you start with one crop and you learn it, you move on to the next and the next, and then you just become addicted to seed saving and to learning about all these different crops. I guess not to leave you completely without an answer. Brassicas is something that I'm really interested in right now, because of the challenge of saving seed. So most brassicas, with the exception of like mustard greens, are biennial. So that means that they will produce seed in their second year. So you have to overwinter the plant or the root. So for instance, um, rutabaga is a brassica, and you need to store that root. So you start with a seed and you plant it and you get this big, beautiful rutabaga. And then you have to keep that rutabaga over winter. And there are various techniques to do so. But then you plant that rutabaga back out and it makes this big, beautiful plant and gives you just an abundance of seed. We were talking earlier before we started recording about a cabbage project that I'm really excited about. It's called Red Verona, and it's a cross between a Savoy and a head cabbage. And the other complexity of brassicas is that they are cross-pollinating and outcrossers. So that means they require pollen from other plants, whereas most plants have the capability of pollinating themselves, or at least they can receive pollen from the same plant, and it won't negatively affect pollination. But with brassicas, you need a very large population. So they say that for genetic preservation, you need 80 plants that are flowering at the same time. And here in Vermont, our winters are quite cold. So as I shared earlier, I attempted to overwinter 200 plants in one of my high tunnels. And of that, about 90 of them are healthy, producing flowers, big, beautiful plants. So you can see the challenge that is presented in this climate with regards to overwintering some things. But other things like carrots and beets, it's actually quite easy to overwinter those roots and then to plant back out. So I've got a beet variety that I planted out a few weeks ago, and it looks great. And I just kept the beets in a Ziploc bag in the crisper, and we're actually still eating beets from last year because I grew so many trying to hedge my bet. And so, we're still eating beets, and I've got enough really great population for seed production this year.
Maybe it should change the phrase to hedge your beets.
Yeah, right. That's a good one. I like that.
I'm awful. I'm incorrigible.
We gotta make a bumper sticker.
Yeah, put it on a t-shirt.
Exactly, for us nerdy garden seed savers.
So your seed sources, do you have I assume there's a network of seed savers. Do you communicate with people from around the world? Is it possible for somebody here in the region that perhaps does it on their own to send you samples to work with? Like, how do you kind of increase your inventory?
Good question. So I took over the catalog from our neighbor on the adjacent piece of property. And so she already had a really large selection that she had been maintaining. But really, it's like what varieties intrigue me. So I do get seeds from other seed savers, but sometimes I'll just browse other seed catalogs, similar, some of which are definitely on a little bit larger scale, but some are close in scale to myself and really focused on preservation.
Yep.
So I know that seed source is really good. I'm thinking of Sandhill. I'm thinking of Adaptive Seeds. I've definitely trialed some varieties from Baker Creek and High Mowing over the years. But as I said, you got to start with open pollinated varieties. So that's the key. But for me, I am focused on varieties that do well in our region, that are cold hardy or have some season extension qualities, but also, flavor is a big deciding factor. I mean,
sure,
you want to grow something and maintain something that's enjoyable to eat. But also the historical context too is an interesting component and something that draws me to a specific variety. So there's a lot of things that go into deciding if I want to trial something, and then it's there's a trial phase, and I might just try a variety and just see if it does well, and not necessarily save seed of that variety in that year, or if it seems like it's doing really well, I'll make sure that I've got a large enough population and that I'm mindful of other crops that I'm trying to potentially grow. And then I'll just kind of go for the gold and save seed of it. I'll always save seed of a new variety 1 year and then plant it back out and then save seed again before I offer it. Just to kind of make sure that the quality is there. It is true to type. And also, even seeds from like California, in year one, it might, not be that great, but you save seed of it. And in the subsequent year that you grow it, it's incredible, the difference.
Cool.
One of the biggest attributes of open pollinated varieties is that they adapt to your specific area. Every year you grow a variety out, it picks up on it was a drought year, or
Mhm.
it was a deluge, or maybe it experienced a lot of wind, and so it kind of made the plant a little stronger. I mean, all these little bits of the genetics are passed on to the next generation. And so every year that you grow something out in your gardens, it continues to adapt to your specific microclimate, and it just continues to thrive. Um, so that's why it's really important that more people get involved in seed saving, um, so that we can really contribute to a vibrant local food system. Because as
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier, all food derives from seed, uh, and with the pandemic, and we're realizing how important it is to be local. And food is certainly a big component of that. I would advocate it's one of the most important. Um,
Absolutely.
but I think we're realizing, we should be focusing on our local economies more so, and kind of building that self-reliance and resiliency within our communities, because we have the capacity to do so. It's of course, I'm relatively new to to commercial seed to the commercial seed growing industry. Sylvia, when she offered the catalog, it was very small scale. It was just word of mouth. There was no web presence. And so we've kind of ramped that up. And it's incredible how many people in this area are just unaware of what we're doing, and also
Yeah.
just unaware of what other people are doing locally, and have a desire now to support those local businesses. But there's that lack of awareness,
Mhm.
because we've been accustomed to just ordering things from Amazon, or
Yeah.
anything like that, which I cringe at saying that, but but I'm guilty. We all are, I'm
Yeah.
sure,
It's
at
part of
one
the
point.
reality.
Um, but there's so much that we can access here locally, and I think it's important to be supporting those people that are trying to make a go at it, and are providing products and services here in our community.
No, I completely agree. Um,
Yeah.
so I know that we're at about a half hour, just over a half hour. So I want to be mindful of your time. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add, potentially as we wrap things up, or
Sure. Yeah, I would just strongly encourage people to consider seed saving, and even if it's just a particular tomato variety that you really enjoy growing, and incorporating into your meals, or if it's a bean that is just incredibly beautiful, and it's just jaw dropping, because those crops are very easy to save seed of,
Mhm.
and you don't necessarily have to worry about um, some of the complexities that other crops present with regards to seed saving. Um, but it's just very empowering, um, to save one seed, and also to share that seed, because there are people who don't have the capacity to do so, um, and might not financially be able to buy seeds. So why not share seeds with the community, especially in a time like this? Because I think we all should be planting a garden, whether it's a pot in the window, or it's going for the gold, and starting a larger garden, not just for the self-reliance, and providing one's nutrition, but it's really meditative, and it's like, and there's health benefits beyond just the nutrition, but getting your hands in the soil and working with microbial life, and getting healthy bacteria, and getting outside, getting access to sun, and kind of reconnecting with nature, and healing that relationship that has been negatively affected over the course of humanity, as we've
Yeah,
kind of divided ourselves more and more. So yeah, just get out there and garden and seed save if you have the capacity to do so.
absolutely. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I know for one, I look forward to potentially visiting the farm once we get all this cleared up. I would love to see what you're up to in person, and
Okay.
and thank you in person for joining me. Do you
Yeah,
have?
I love having people come to the farm. Of course, we've had to, you know, reduce that, if not halt that altogether, because I really enjoy the work that I do, and I think we have a lot to offer here. Oh, Athena wants to say hi. This is the next generation
Hi,
of seed savers. This is my daughter, Athena.
hi, Athena.
Hi. Yes.
I'm
Athena,
Chris.
what's your favorite vegetable?
Strawberries.
Strawberries. That's not
Strawberries.
a vegetable, silly.
Grapes. Grapes. Grapes.
Grapes
Grapes.
isn't a vegetable. What did you help me harvest today in the high tunnel? What did we harvest this morning? That's green, and you really love eating spinach.
Spinach.
Athena is going to be wiser beyond her years. She already can identify spinach and eats it by the handful as we harvest.
That's great.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're really fortunate to provide this environment for her.
absolutely.
Yeah,
No, it's quite a gift.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome, Brian. Well, thank you again for joining me.
Yes.
I'll have this up probably early next week at the latest, and
Okay.
we'll certainly figure out a way to share it with you. It'll be on YouTube. We'll also have it on our Facebook.
Okay.
I've really enjoyed it, and I look forward to keeping in touch.
Yeah, likewise. I certainly would love to have you and your wife up to the farm. So let's certainly keep in touch. And thank you very much for this opportunity. And also thank you for what you and Brick are doing. It's just really important work to be highlighting local people and to be, kind of creating the new stories, because we've got an incredible opportunity to change the way that we interact with one another, with nature, with other beings. So I keep telling people we need to seize the moment and find the silver linings, and also, just create that new story. It's really an incredible time, and it's got its ups and downs, but it's got a lot of opportunity. So I'm grateful to be a part of it.
Absolutely. And just
Yeah.
like those plants too, you get through the season and you get a little bit stronger because of it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, yeah, thanks again for this opportunity, and let's certainly keep in touch.
Certainly.